Good evening and welcome to Real Life Architecture. I am Neil and this is Real Life Architecture, and we are live. We've got one person on at the moment. So I haven't done a live stream in a good few months. I think I did one earlier this year, but yeah, this is what are we, Sunday, 4th of May, 2025. So I've got quite a few things I want to catch up on the channel. So if you're joining tonight, let me know, where in the world are you? Where are you geographically? What country, what region are you in? I always love to know where people are tuning in from. And the purpose of the live stream really is just for me to talk about what's going on in the channel, what I've done over the last couple of months, and what I'm going to be doing in the upcoming few months. So I've got, as usual, always have a list of topics I'm going to be talking about in upcoming videos. And if you have anything that you want to ask about previous videos, or you've got suggested topics, I'm always happy to hear from it. I love to hear what my community of listeners want to say about what I'm up to on the channel. So 5 people on just now. Let me know, where are you in the world tonight? What country, what region are you tuning in from? So I'm going to start by just looking back over some of the recent videos, because like I said, it's been a few months since I've last had a live stream and had a chat with you guys. I love doing this, but I wish I could make more time for it. So recently, and I'm thinking since January, there's been a big growth in the channel. A lot of new people have joined, and the two videos were very successful. One was how to insulate inside a solid wall, and you would never think that's the kind of topic that would blow up, but between YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, because I'm on there as well, that's had over 450,000 views. And off the back of that, I begun talking to Procter Group, who are a well-known company in the UK. They're based about an hour's drive from where I live, and they make membranes. If you want to do a passive house, an airtight house, they do membranes for that. They do all sorts of other vapor control membranes, roofing membranes, but they also make this stuff, which is space therm, and it is aerogel, which is bonded to a magnesium oxide board. Very interesting stuff, and it is the thinnest insulation available in the UK at the moment per energy efficiency relative to thickness. So the other advantage it has is that it is hydroscopic. You can stick it straight onto a solid wall. If it's damp, it won't matter because moisture can move through it. And it is ideal if you've got an older listed building and you really want to save space. The downside, if you want to call it that, is it is quite expensive. It's almost £100 a square meter. So it's a very specialist product. But Procter Group got me to make a feature video, and I did, and knocked that one out the park. That's been getting tens of thousands of views, and it's been really good. Helped explain that product, and it is a product that really speaks for itself. All I'm doing is making sure more people can hear what it has to say. So I've had a lot of people in the comments talking about insulation, and it's been the hot topic for the first half of this year. Let's put it that way. And Procter Group are now a full-time sponsor of the channel alongside Sunflex UK. So you'll be hearing more about that as time goes on, that videos will be sponsored by Procter Group. So that's one item of big news that's happened in the last few months since I've last done a live stream. The other is that I made a video for the Energy Saving Trust. It's part of Scottish Power. They're an energy company, and even though it is Scottish Power, they are in England as well. They're along Northumbria and Cumberland, and the area around Manchester, Liverpool as well. So they cover millions of homes in the UK, and they provide an online tool that allows regular homeowners to work out what they might save if they upgrade their home. Double glazing, insulation, air source heat pump, whatever it is. You can pick and choose from a list. It's very clever and very accurate, I found. So I made a video for them. And now that came about through an agency, like marketing, social media agency from Glasgow, who contacted me. And off the back of that, we've now agreed that they will represent me. So going forward, I now have an agent. I've got a firm who represent my interests when companies want to do promotional stuff through me, and which is, I could see this coming down the line, but now it's actually happened. It's amazing, and I'm really happy to work with this particular agency. They're called Frame, and they're very professional, very really thoroughly organized. Everything has to be checked and double checked. I really enjoy that. As a professional, I enjoy working with other professionals. So that's that's part and parcel of what's happened in the channel over the last few months. And I found out on Friday I was asked to provide content for an article in one of the UK's national newspapers. to do with permitted development for two-story houses. So I can't say which one yet because it hasn't been published, but hopefully when it goes online or gets published in print, I'll be able to share that on the channel as well. So things are moving fast. There's lots of these sorts of opportunities coming up, and I've been approached by a number of companies over the past few weeks, just off the back of this. They've seen some of the videos I've made, and they've asked me to get involved in talking to them about making videos for their companies. So I'm quite cautious about this. I'm very selective about it. I'm not just going to start making videos for everyone who knocks on my door. And part of the good thing about having an agency is that they deal with that for me. But I have the final say on who it is I'm going to work with. I'm not going to work with whomever the agency send my way. So I'm quite cautious about it because obviously I don't want to abuse the trust I have with you guys, with my audience. And I don't want to spend all my time making videos for people as well. I've got my own agenda. So I've got some upcoming video topics, one of which will be how to take down a load-bearing wall. That's something that one of my shorts I made several years ago now, where I was in the back garden of a site under construction, and we'd opened up a large hole in the back wall of the house. I filmed that, and it still gets thousands of views every month. People just watch it. But I'm going to go into deep dive into how you actually do it. And last year, about a year ago, I made a video about what it costs to take down a load-bearing wall in a property in the UK. That still gets, I think that gets things like 100 or 200 views every day, just continuously being watched. And for obvious reasons, it's the kind of thing most homeowners at some point when they're looking to alter their homes will want to know: is that wall load-bearing? And if so, what's it going to cost to knock it? So I'm going to make a video showing the step-by-step of how that's actually done. If you've never seen it, frankly, it's terrifying when you see contractors start poking holes in walls. They put up these needles and props to hold up the wall above, and then they take down the wall below. And the gap between these supports is quite large. I can walk through it quite easily, and I'm a big guy. When you think, wow, how is this standing up? And you can have 2 and 3 stories of 19th century tenement above your head, and it's standing there and it's fine. And then they put a new beam in, and then they build up some bricks on top of the beam. And so there's a whole process to that, and it's fascinating. I've got photos from older jobs, and I'm going to do some 3D models showing the step-by-step of that process. And I'm pretty sure some people will have never seen this before and find that fascinating. So I'm going to just explain how it all gets done. That's one upcoming video. The other one, off the back of the article in that newspaper, will be about permitted development and 2-story extensions. Now, I've made content about permitted development in the past, and I'm not skeptical. It has its place. It is a useful tool, but you have to understand it was not made to help homeowners. It was made to help the planning system. It reduces the workload for local planning departments. So yeah, that's where we're at the moment. What else have I got? I've got a whole list of upcoming videos that I just can't wait to get stuck into. If there's one complaint I've got is that I don't have enough time, because I was asked at short notice to make that article, put that content together. I think that was nearly 3 pages of stuff I had to write out for these journalists so that they can have things to pick and choose quotes from. I didn't get around to making a video this weekend, which is half the reason why I've gone online and done this this live stream today. So yeah, we've now got 10 people on this evening. Let us know, where are you in the world? Are you in the UK? If so, where? Are you international? What country, what region are you in tonight? Just put it in the chat. Tell me where you're from. And if there's any topic or question you want to talk about, just put it in the chat and we'll have a look at it. So it's, what are we, 9 minutes past 8. I'll let this run for about an hour and we'll see where that takes us. Whenever I've done this in the past, I've always run it for an hour. So yeah, ask some questions. I'm going to just look through some of the videos I've done recently, and we'll just talk about these because some of them have been, the last one was inheritance. And you may think, well, what's that got to do with property or construction or design? But if you haven't seen it, I posted it, I think 2 weeks ago, not sure. Anyway, it's the idea that in the UK over the next 10 years or so, there's going to be a huge amount of wealth transfer from the older generation to the new generation. And of course, this involves people's family passing away, which is not a nice topic to think about. And I know a lot of people in Britain don't like talking about money, and they certainly don't like talking about death. But this is going to happen. And the impact it could have potentially on the housing sector could be enormous. So I've looked at what would happen if the average person, someone on the average income, inherited the average house. So I think it was about £38,000 a year is the average income in the UK. The average house is £282,000. What happens if that person inherits that house, or a cash sum to that value? What could they do with it? What happens if they were to sell the house they currently owned and then renovated the house they inherited? What do renovations actually cost? What would happen if they sold the house they inherited and took the money and plowed that into their existing house? Would you get, how much extension, for example, would you get for that kind of money? And then finally, if they sold both the current place they live in and the house they inherited and took that money, could they build their dream home? So I looked at those three scenarios, worked out the costs for all of those, and that's the most recent video I did on the channel. And I think it's a topic, it's a story I keep hearing from my clients, both in my day job, in my practice, but also when I do online consultations. People will casually mention, well, we've got an inheritance and this is, we want to do something with it, or we're getting money from family. That's usually how they describe it. But that more and more is the case. And a few of my clients have inherited properties and then they want to move into those properties. But that's quite rare. Most of the time, they're just getting money and they're putting it into a house they already own. So we've got Thomas, who is in the UK, but originally from Poland. Welcome, Thomas. Yeah, so we've got 13 folk on just now watching this live stream. Let me know in the comments where you're from. Where are you in the UK? You can be from anywhere, but where are you this evening? Are you in the UK? Are you international? Where are you tuning in from? Is this your first time watching a live stream? Have you regularly watched my channel? Do you subscribe? Let me know all those things. And let me know if there's things I've made in recent videos that you're interested in or not interested in. And if there are topics coming up that you would like to talk about. So let's keep going. So I made a video about, is it worth upgrading your home, which was that was the energy-wise calculation video, which I think that was a really interesting tool. It's limited in geographic scope. It's like the southern and central belt of Scotland, the northern area of England, and there's a map in the video showing where it is. If you live in those areas, the online tool, once it gets your address, will pull all available information from public databases to populate. And it's kind of scary, actually, how much these databases know about your house. They know its age, its size, number of bedrooms, what kind of method of construction it has, its heating system, presumably from when it was previously sold, because it would have been surveyed and that information would have been put up in the public domain. They have all that stuff. Martin, I'm from Basingstoke, Hampshire. I'm not sure, have I pronounced that right? Just interested in all things housing. Brilliant, fantastic. So am I. Yeah, so welcome along this evening. When you say housing, are we talking about housing as in buying and selling, or housing as in construction, or both? Let me know if you have a preference. A video I made a few months back, advice before buying a house. That's a good one, because I do the online consultation service and I offer several different kinds of services depending on what it is you need, whether it's someone has a house, they own a house and they want to make some changes to it, or they're looking to buy a plot of land and build a house on it, or they're looking to buy a house. By far, that's the most popular consultation. A consultation before someone signs on the dotted line and buys a house. And over the last couple of weeks, I've had several people that I've talked out of buying houses because they just weren't right for them. Either the budget that they had and the aspirations to go with it just did not match up, or there was something amiss with the house that they hadn't quite cottoned onto. And I can see in the photographs things like damp, or that changes had been made. In one case, changes had been made to the house. It was a 2-story house that then had the attic converted, so now it was 3 stories. There was no evidence of planning or building regs approval for that. And there were other issues with that house as well, beyond merely that. So I had to say to them, get your lawyer, go back, talk to the seller and ask, have they got the appropriate approvals for what they've done to the house? The dormer roof was also very obviously leaking. There was patches in the ceiling. You see this in the photographs. The estate agents hadn't hidden it. And when we looked at it from Google Earth, you could see that the bituminous felt roof had that sort of silver paint coating on it. I should know what this is called, but I don't. I think it's just a metallic coating, possibly made from aluminium. I'm not sure. Either way, it's shiny when it's new, but it goes very patchy and dull when it weathers off. And you could see that it was weathering in the photos from above. So it had been there for a good, 20 plus years, was at the end of its life, was already leaking. And if it had been leaking for long, that can go beyond merely superficial. It's not just staining the plasterboard on the ceiling, it could be rotting the timbers. So you have all sorts of potential issues. And no one had pointed this out to them. So I think at the end of that, they decided maybe this isn't the house for us. Anyway, long story short, I made a video a few months back about the kind of things I continually see in older homes. It's like a hit list of things you should be looking at if you're looking to buy an older property, because once it starts going wrong, it can go badly wrong. And one that got kind of, not controversial is the wrong word, but got a lot of people divided was timber frame homes. So it's in Scotland where I work, and I'm based in the Edinburgh area. I live in Fife, but I do most of my work in Edinburgh. Timber frame construction has been the dominant method of construction across Scotland since certainly the 90s, maybe, and it's been around since earlier. But the house I currently live in is timber frame. The house I lived in before was timber frame. The first flat that I lived in after graduating uni 21 years ago was timber frame. Timber frame construction is just normal. But when you go to England, it's almost always brick block cavity walls. And so I looked into that, and why was that the case? And of course, people in the comments were like, oh, one, there were people who were living in Scotland had no idea that their house was timber frame. They looked at the outside, they saw brick or block or harling or render and assumed the house was of masonry construction. But it turns out that, yes, there's masonry on the outside, but what's holding up the roof is a timber frame. And that really upset some people to find this out. And others in England were like, oh, good God, no, we can't possibly have this. It won't work, even though our climate in Scotland is a lot harsher than it is in England, and timber frame is also used on the continent and in North America, has been for well over 100 years. It works just fine. So I set out precisely what you would have to do as a contractor to make sure this stuff wasn't going to rot, wasn't going to burn, was going to last, all the rest of it. Interesting video to make from my point of view. So we've got some more comments in here. Tim, general builder / surveyor from Somerset, currently in northern Brittany. Lovely. Working on my wife's inherited holiday cottage. 30 years nearly finished. It's, yes, brilliant. So that's, yeah, it's a part of France I've not been to. But yeah, that sounds absolutely lovely. What's the weather like there? We've had a glorious day here. It's been, as the day has gone on, it's become really quite nice. Martin, right. Both. So yeah, we've asked before, this is to do with housing. This is whether buying or selling or constructing. I'm interested in all the rules and why they're there. I'm studying to be a conveyancer or mortgage advisor, but I'm also interested in the planning rules. Very good. So yeah, I think the next video I'm going to make, it'll come out next weekend, will be about permitted development and two-story extensions, because the rules were changed last year, 2024, to allow certain kinds of two-story extensions without the need of applying for planning permission. But I've said before, permitted development can be a trap, particularly if people don't apply for a certificate of lawful development, or sometimes called a certificate of lawfulness, because the planning system doesn't ask you to do that. But if you ever try to get a mortgage, or if you're selling the house and the person buying it has a mortgage, they're going to want to see this certificate, and you can be trapped. And where it can really go wrong is Article 4 of the legislation gives local authorities the power to change, to reduce, or to even remove permitted development rights from different areas in their local authority. So you could build it to the rules today because you've checked and it's, yeah, you're allowed to do certain extensions under permitted development, and you build it, and that's fine. And then a few years down the line, you try to sell it, and someone buying it says, yeah, prove that you had permitted development. And you can't. You go back to the council and they say, actually, we changed the rules last year. You have to, they will make you apply for a certificate of lawful development, but they will assess it on the rules as they are on the day you make the application, not on the rules as they were when you built this thing. So showing them photos from a few years ago to say, hey, look, I built it, 5-6 years ago when the rules were different, they won't care. The application is formed as the rules are today. And that's where you're going to get stuck, because then you have to go through a planning application process. And if that gets refused, you then have to appeal. If that gets refused, you're going to wind up having to demolish the building. So it's unlikely, but not impossible, that could happen to people. And I know it has already started causing stress. I'm hearing these stories anecdotally, and I know that the financial institutions, the mortgage lenders, all say on their websites, you should have a certificate of lawful development. The other thing, of course, is that you get people who are just afraid of the planning system, and they will restrict the amount of building they do just to fall within these rules, and it's needless. Particularly if your house is not listed, not in a conservation area, you stand a very good chance of being able to get permission to build an extension that is larger than the rules for permitted development will allow. So yeah, as long as you can afford to do it, then yeah, you should, and just make the application for planning permission and not be afraid of it. So yeah, that's going to be the next video coming along. Here we go. Tim, beautiful. Oh, the weather's beautiful. Good. That's fantastic. So yeah, we've got 7 folk on at the moment. Let me know if you've got questions about topics that you would like me to cover in upcoming videos. I have a list, and I will put things on the list if I think these are, worthwhile making. So yeah, just freestyle it. Tell me what you think. Put it out there. I'll do my best. And yeah, let's see. Where was I? So I've been going through videos that I have made since the beginning of the year. Surprisingly few. I think I've only made, what, 7, 8 videos this year so far? And I think part of the reason, actually more like 10 actually, but yeah, okay. Part of the reason is that I've been very, very busy with work in my day job. And also, I found that as I've tried to up the quality of my videos and doing more research and taking more time to write these scripts, instead of doing about one a week, which I would love to be able to keep up that tempo of just consistently doing one a week, it's turning out to be more like 3 a month, maybe even just 2 a month, one every fortnight. So that's kind of the way it is. I've been producing shorts. I made one recently, and I don't know if you've seen it, but it is a couple of weeks ago. I was in Edinburgh on a weekend. My wife was getting her haircut, and I had my 2 boys, and we decided to go for a drive around Edinburgh. I showed them the sights of the parts of Edinburgh you wouldn't see so often. And we swung by my office, which is a co-working space. It's on Dublin Street. And I popped in just to get the post because I hadn't been in there for a few weeks. Went in, got the post. I almost always work from home, and I would only use my office for meetings, or if I'm in Edinburgh once every week or so. If I'm between meetings, I have nowhere to go, I'll just go into my office, do some emails, and then go back out to my next meeting. So I don't use it that often. I'm in there, I check the post, and it's a very nice office. It's lovely, but it's a co-working space. So there's dozens of other companies use this, and it's usually just one man, one woman bands, small-time organizations who don't have staff use that as a sort of base in the city. And I realize we have a key to the Newtown Gardens, to Queen Street East Gardens, which are private. If you don't know about Edinburgh, the Newtown was built in the late early 1800s, and it was built basically for the upper class in Edinburgh to move out of the medieval old town and have this large Georgian spacious area. And there are big green areas that look like parks but are not. They are private. Only the local residents can get access. Now, they have to apply for a key. They've got to pay an annual subscription. So I made a video. I took my 2 boys in. I've been living and working in the Edinburgh area for over 20 years. I've never been in these places. So I took the key. It's a quiet Saturday, went in, opened the gate, walked around, took some footage, and then I made a video and uploaded it. And in the video, stupidly perhaps, I pointed out that over the years, there have been calls in some of the media newspapers for these, what appear to be parks, but are called gardens, to be made public. And I just said that, okay, over the years, this has been something that people have thought of as being somewhat controversial, that there's these large open areas in the middle of a very busy city, but they're not open to the public. They're entirely private, and you need a key to get in. And I said, well, what do you think? Should they stay private, or should they be open to the public? And if so, how would that change take place? I wasn't controversial about it. I just made the statement, asked the question. And people went at it in the comments. 1 or 2 of them had a go at me, which doesn't bother me. But most of them were going back and forth at each other. People would say, "Oh God, this is awful. They're an anachronism. They should be open to the public." And other people who lived in the area were saying, "Absolutely not. They are private property. Hands off." My own view is that yes, they are an oddity. And the question I would ask is, if it didn't exist, would you do this today? I don't think you would. But they exist. They are an artifact from 18th century society, from when the class system was far more dominant then than it is today. It is what it is, and it is private property, and I just don't think anybody is going to be able to change that. And even if someone really decided to fight that one, it would probably need legislation. I did some research afterwards. It turns out there was legislation passed specifically for the gardens. Why, I don't know, but it was in the 1840s. So you would need to repeal that and probably produce some new legislation and do some sort of compulsory purchase. And at the end of all that, huge fight, millions probably spent in lawyers' fees and all the rest of it, parliamentary time taken up. Is it really going to be worth it? Yeah, possibly for the residents of Edinburgh, but then there's the cost. You're going to have to reimburse whoever owns it. And, what price would they expect to be paid? It's city centre property. It would run to astronomical sums of money if it was put up for sale. Certainly on the public market, it would run to, crazy money, tens, maybe hundreds of millions. Who knows? How many of them would you need to privatize? It would just be ghastly. It would be an enormously time-consuming and expensive exercise, and I just don't see that happening. So the question really is, if we are continuing to build things, are we being careful enough to make sure that developers are not privatizing off areas that probably will be better as public spaces? And this still happens. There are all sorts of developments, commercial developments particularly, where public or what's appeared to be public spaces around the front of things are in fact actually private, and that can create issues. So there's a whole thing. You can explore that. So yeah, I just made it like a 1 minute video and it's blown up and got over 100,000 views. It's an interesting one. So what we got? Tim currently got a retirement project going. Steel portal frame with SIPS panels, 20 by 10 meter workshop / studio store. Any comment on SIPS? SIPS panels, right? If you don't know what SIPS panels are, they are, is it structural insulated plywood or some structural insulated panels? So essentially, it's two sheets of plywood or OSB either side of a dense phenolic foam insulation. Phenolic foam is like this. It's that dense, hard plastic insulation. And you slap sheets of ply or OSB either side of it, and you run it's like timber frame, like a picture frame around the edge, and you just make these as modular panels. I'm simplifying, but basically that's what it is. And you can build your walls out of this. I think you can also build sloping roofs out of it as well. I have looked at it for a couple of projects over the years, but it just, for extensions specifically, it's not really going to be worth it. Certainly not worth it economically. And there's also the issue is if you make a modular system and you butt it up against an old building in particular, the old building might not be plumb, might not be square, level. And so you have a problem with connecting this. It's better suited for new build projects. If you were building a new house, yeah, this would work. If you're a developer building multiple new houses, it's probably worth it financially because it's fast. Part of the problem I had with SIPs 10 plus years ago when I looked at this first was that some of the companies who were producing SIPs panels seemed to be investing an awful lot more money in marketing, particularly to private homeowners or people in the self-build industry who may not have had the sophisticated professional understanding of construction, and they were selling this thing like it was going to, bring about world peace. And I met people who came back from home shows, those big arena organizations where you go along for a day. They're run over a long weekend, and there will be hundreds of stalls from all sorts of manufacturers and suppliers. And you go along as a homeowner and you get bombarded with sales spiel and brochures. And these guys would be at this thing. And I had people who were saying, wow, we have to have SIPs. It's going to be amazing. And I'm like, it's not. It's just a wall. It's a way of building a wall. And we have lots of ways of building a wall. So yeah, SIPs absolutely has its place. One of the things you need to be careful of, Tim, is if you mentioned you're in Brittany, but I presume it's the same, you need some kind of certification for this. Where I know people in the UK have had problems is that when we do our building regs approval, the structural engineer will design out the foundations and the frame, etc. But our system allows engineers to take out certain components of the building and make the certification the responsibility of a manufacturer. It's often done for roof trusses. If you have prefabricated roof trusses, you see them on the back of a lorry, they're all identical, they get craned on to a building. It can be done for large areas of glass. I've had that where if you have big patio doors, the engineer will say, I want the manufacturer to certify these independently, so that the engineer will do the floor and the walls and the roof, but that actual big area of glass, which can be hit by wind, has to have a certain amount of strength. So the glass company, the glazing frame company, have to do the certification of that element. The same was true of SIPs, probably still is. So if you're using SIPs, you may need to make sure that your supplier can provide either the engineering calculations to your engineer or can independently verify that those SIPs panels are going to do what they're supposed to do. So yeah, that was the one downfall of it, is that some, not all, some of the suppliers 10 years ago were getting into trouble because they didn't have the capacity to do this, or they just weren't bothering. And so you had people with finished buildings who couldn't get signed off by the local authority because they weren't being given a piece of paper to say that panel is certified. And yeah, their engineer couldn't do it and wouldn't do it. They were saying, well, we've made that in our original drawings. We circled that and said that SIPS panel is by a specialist, must be certified by the said specialist. And the specialist wasn't giving that piece of paper for whatever reason. So what do we got? Biker's Crib, nice username. Hi, seriously considering solar panels. Any recommendations? I don't think I can give you like specific recommendations as into manufacturers, etc. What I would suggest is yes, I mean, I don't know. The short answer is I don't know enough to be able to choose between individual manufacturers. I'm aware there's different kinds of solar panels. There's different technologies being used. I'm not knowledgeable enough on that. I did fit some solar panels a couple of years ago outside the roof of my my office. It's a one car garage I converted about 12 years ago, and they run a battery pack in the background. That's what those wires are running down the wall. They come through the roof through a control unit into a battery underneath. So I just bought those. I think it was about 500 quid for the batteries, the inverter, and the two panels. And I just built a softwood frame on the roof and angled it towards the sun. And from this time of the year onwards, from Easter onwards, it just runs the office. Yeah, so I just plug in my computer behind me, the printers, the lights into that. Not all the lights, like the main light is on the mains, and I've got a Wi-Fi router up at this end of the office that's on the mains as well, just because running a cable from the inverter over here is difficult. But yeah, I suspect there's all manner of specialists out there who can help you on that one. If you are, one thing I will say is, if depending on where you are in the UK, you'll find the video I made about the Energy Saving Trust. It's called "Find Out If Upgrading Your Home Will Save You Money UK." Published it 2 months ago. Check the video and check the link in the description, because there's an online calculator, and if your home is in the areas, and there's a map on the first few minutes of the video. There's a map that shows the areas where this works. It will have loads of information about your house. Put in the fact you're going to have solar panels. It will give you pretty accurate prices of what it will cost you to do it and how much money you will save. So that's from the Energy Saving Trust. I should say I was paid to make that video, but their online tool is excellent. I've checked it out. It really does what it says on the tin. So check it out. I made the video about 2 months ago, and that will hopefully help answer your question, bikers. Martin Wright, adding private entrance to ground floor flats? Question mark. This would make it easier for wheelchair to avoid fire doors and communal entrance. That is true. What are your thoughts, pros and cons for things like costs? So I've seen this done. In fact, I've actually done it on a couple of properties where tenement properties, like older 19th century tenement properties in Edinburgh, the back area would have traditionally been a drying green, where you put your laundry out to dry. And many people, it's not just me, many people will have cut down a window. You take an existing window, you just cut down the sill and turn it into a French door, patio door, that sort of thing, and then you can walk straight in and out. So the lowest floor flat will do that. Depending on where you are in the UK, ownership can become an issue here, because in Scotland we have the Tenement Scotland Act 2004, which, if your title deeds for your block of flats is silent about who owns the rear garden or the roof, the top floor flat will own the roof and the lower floor flat will own the back garden. That's unusual, but because most, certainly higher value properties, the title deeds will be waterproof. They'll describe exactly who owns what. But there were a lot of properties built in the 19th century where they just didn't really adequately describe it, and so legislation was passed. But that's only in Scotland. Don't know how it will be in other parts of the UK. But the short answer, the problem you have with fire escapes is that you must escape into what Scottish regulations call a place of safety. The English regs have a similar idea, and although they are measured differently, the idea being that if you get out into a sort of open area, in Scotland, it's either an unenclosed open area at ground level, or it can be an enclosed area in open air at ground level with access to an open area. I.e., if you got into this drying green, how do you get out of there to go to, say, the street? How would that happen? Because if you remain trapped in a sort of enclosed area that's not far enough away from the building, bad things can happen during a fire. The English regulations give actual distances relative to height. So it's like the distance away from I can't remember exactly. It's in Part B of the English regs. The rear area of your property, to qualify as a safe place in the event of a fire, must be a given distance relative to the height of the building. So I think it has to be the same distance out as the building is tall or whatever. So there is an X by Y graph drawn on the regulations. So the long story short, you can't just say that by putting a door in the back of a building and going into a rear garden that you are technically safe. And in terms of fire escape, there's nothing wrong with doing it just to get access to a garden. Even in properties that are listed, you would just go through the list of buildings application process, and you would also need a building regulations approval, because the new door must comply with the building regs with respect to its opening width, accessibility, U values for heat loss, etc. But yeah, that's doable. I've done that. But if you're going to classify it legally as a fire escape, the place you're escaping into must itself meet certain criteria. That's where I'm going with this. I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but I hope that helps answer your questions. Tim, Job is in the UK. Yes, certified fixed to steel frame engineering board. Good, right? Yes, yeah. As long as your SIPs panels are coming from a company that can provide, I think it's called a Form Q, um, or either the engineer has specified it all. That would be unusual for an independent firm of engineers not connected to the SIPs manufacturer to do the certification. It would usually be outsourced to the manufacturer themselves. Thomas, how much of your work is being involved with self-build houses, if any? None at the moment. Maybe you could make a video about how to find a suitable plot of land for a self-build. I have covered that on 2 occasions. There are 2 other videos I've done about finding a plot of land. And I'm happy to cover it again to look at the topic anew. But yeah, I definitely did do a video quite early on like maybe in my first year of this. I've been doing this 4 years, about the problems you can encounter when you try to find a self-build site, and the pitfalls that you can go into. And the other one was, it was about buying plots of land at auction, because I'd had several people come on and want to do consultations who were looking to bid on plots through auction houses. And these plots were weird. They were like little weird shaped triangles of land on housing estates, or narrow strips of land between walls and roads, just 2 meters wide running down the verge. And they were being sold for what appeared to be very low sums of money, like $5,000, that kind of thing. And they were asking, could I build on this? No, almost certainly not, for a number of reasons. But I made a video looking at this because it seems to me that when land becomes available for sale, quite often what will happen is that the agents who do this, the go-betweens, there's the owner, and then there's maybe an auctioneer agent. The agent will know people who in the game. They will know people who are full-time property developers and say, hey, I've been approached about this plot of land. The owner wants to sell it off books. Do you want to just bid on this? Give us a good price. We'll deal with that. And the problem is, anything that winds up going to auction is almost always crap. It's usually stuff that it's being sold as seen. You are almost never going to be able to build a thing on it. So that's part of it. There's a big problem with that. There's a lot of these sites out there, and you get naive people who think they're in for a good thing. The thing is, if you've never done it, if you're not regularly doing property and construction, and you see this, the professionals have already looked at it, and they will know that's not developable. It's not. There's nothing you can do with it, and so then it gets put up for sale. So if you want to buy it just to, I don't know, just have a plot of land next to someone's house or beside a road, go ahead. But if you're wanting to buy it with the purpose of developing it, take advice first. 99.9% sure it's not going to be developable. So the problem with my channel now, Thomas has just mentioned, I must have missed it. Sorry, I have to have another look at your channel. The problem is I've been doing this for 4 years, and I'll try and find the video here on screen, just show you what the thumbnail looks like. It's right back in the beginning. I think I've got over 200 videos on my channel, which is wild when you think about it. There it is. It is the second oldest video on the channel. That is its thumbnail. So self-build house UK, watch this before buying land, and that explains all manner of things you would want to know before you take seriously the proposition of buying a piece of land. I'll try and find you the video I mentioned about auctions, just so you can see what the thumbnail looks like. I made that one last year, and it's here somewhere. It will show up eventually. But yeah, if land is being sold at auction, like really weird scraps of land, it's not going to work. And of course, when you try to find it, you can't. Is self-build? I made another one that you might want to look at. It's not the one I mentioned, but is self-building worth it in the UK? Some good information in that one. That went out about a year ago. And where is it? Can't find it. This is really annoying. I know I made the video, and I made it roughly speaking a year ago. Where is it? I'm scrolling through my phone. I'm really sorry about this. Nope. I'm not seeing it. Yeah. So oh, can't find it. It's there somewhere. But yeah, if you have the patience to scroll through the videos I've made, I did make one about buying land at auction. It's 2 seconds. Now it's annoying me. Yeah, here we go. That's it. don't buy a plot at auction if you want to build a house in the UK. It's a fairly strident statement, but it's generally speaking, it's good advice. So find those 3 videos I just mentioned, watch those, and that will tell you what you need to know. Thomas, that's a very good piece of advice. Thanks about not being naive. Anyone can be naive. I mean, there's every one of us are walking around either assuming things which are in fact not true, or there are things we just don't know about the world, and we don't know that we don't know them. It's like Donald Rumsfeld said, the unknown unknowns. Martin Wright, I was thinking about entrance from the street. I think in England it will mostly be the freeholder who owns the building, as flats are normally leasehold. Probably correct. We don't have that system in Scotland anymore. Martin Wright, but there is plan to switch to common hold, so I'm not sure how much that work if it happens. Good point about the fire rules. I was thinking about the front entrance. Right. Okay. So yes, you're correct. If you had a block of flats and you have a window to the ground floor flat, and if you could somehow get permission to cut that window down and make it into a door entrance, then yeah, you could. If it leads straight out, if it's not leading into some sort of like basement cellar type area that is enclosed, as long as it gets out to an area that is unenclosed, yes, it would qualify as a fire escape. Not entirely sure why you would need to do that though, given that if it's a block of flats, it should have a common hallway that is itself a protected enclosure. So yeah, there we go. Plus, you would also run into the issue of planning. Almost certainly, even if the property weren't listed or in the conservation area, if you're trying to put a door into something, and you've mentioned correctly that the ownership of the area outside would also come into it potentially. Now, ownership, the planning system doesn't care about ownership necessarily. I mean, they would want to see a plan showing where ownership or where the boundary is, but they're not necessarily going to be interested in whether or not someone else owns a plot of land, as long as you notify them. So it comes as a surprise to some people. You can apply for planning permission on property that you don't own, which might at first sound kind of odd. Why would you be able to do that? Why should I be able to apply to build an extension on your house if it's not going to benefit me? But the reason is that it allows property developers to speculate. So it's written into the legislation that for that reason. So a developer can try to get planning for a farmer's field, but they don't own the field. The farmer still owns it. They'll have done a deal with the farmer, and it will be that they will pay them a certain amount of money for the field on the day the planning is granted. They'll have contracts written up, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, the planning system doesn't necessarily get involved in who owns what, as long as you've notified in writing the people who do own the land. That's all the planners are interested in. Even if the people who own the land are like, oh, I'm not interested, I don't want this to happen. Yeah, they can object, but that's not on its own necessarily going to stop the whole thing from happening. So there's that. So yeah, where are we? We 42 minutes, 43 minutes gone. We've 13 people on just now. Yeah, so if you're watching, let us know where are you watching from? Are you in the UK? If so, what part? Are you international? Where are you this evening? And is this your first time watching one of my live streams? Have you watched others, or have you been a long-time subscriber to the channel? I've been going for 4 years, and it's going quite well. And one other question I've got, because I don't know if many people realize this, but I'm on YouTube. I've been on YouTube for 4 years, but I've also got TikTok and Instagram. And I think I've got over 40,000 followers on TikTok and almost 20,000 on Instagram. And I've got 31,000 on YouTube. So all in, I've got over 90,000 followers and growing fairly rapidly. But YouTube is the core of the channel. I make every video for YouTube first and then spin off shorts and reels and TikToks off the back of that. So yeah, this is still the foundation of the channel. So the question is, how many of you are aware of my channel on other platforms? That's the question. We've got Simon Drysdale, west coast of Scotland. Lovely. Which part? I was out on holiday in Loch Fyne a couple of weeks ago, and we got spectacular weather. It was out of this world. We took a drive down past Inverary, down past Tarbert, and got the ferry out to Gia. It's a beautiful little island. Spent an afternoon there, had a really nice lunch, and then came back and drove down to Campbelltown at the end of Mull of Kintyre. And the drive from Campbelltown back up to Tarbert as the sun was setting over the ocean, it was flat calm, absolutely like a mill pond, and the sun was dipping into the ocean as we drove back up. It was honestly like one of the top 10 best drives I've ever done in my life. It was out of this world. It's a beautiful place. Kilmalcolm. I'm not off the top of my head. I would have to Google that to know where that is or where it's near. We got Weege. I'm starting up as a limited company in construction as a long-time sole trader. What is the best way to approach architects to tender for work? Right, good. Well, I was a sole trader for my first, I think I was 14 months a sole trader. My wife, as a lawyer, was like, okay, this hobby of yours is now getting serious. We don't want the house in the firing line. If you ever get sued, could you please just form a limited company? So going from sole trader to limited, and that's usually when you start getting serious about things, because you don't want to have everything you own taken from you in the event you're sued. But your question was the best way to approach architects to tender for work. Now, I get these emails, and I suspect every architect get these emails, speculative emails and speculative letters in the post all the time. Could you please add me to your tender list? Yada, yada, yada. So you're in a crowded field. I'm not saying don't do that, but don't expect results from it, at least not immediately. My approach would be network. Ideally find a young architect or an architect just starting out in sole practice or doing whatever it is you do. Are you in the housing game, or do you do bigger projects? What kind of construction do you do? I'm guessing if you're moving from sole trader, you're not doing office blocks. You're probably doing small time work like internal alterations, renovations, extensions. Am I correct? Is that what you're up to? And your best bet is to start networking. Someone in your network group, whether it's trades or suppliers or merchants, someone will know an architect. Talk to them, because what you want is a sort of symbiotic, quid pro quo relationship, that they will be able to give you work, but ultimately they'll be hoping you can give them some work. That if you're both doing the same kind of thing, if you're both doing house extensions, whatever it is, you'll be able to pass each other's name around to other people. So that's ultimately what you're kind of looking for. Certainly when I started out, a friend of a friend was working for a builder he was a landscaper, and he was moving out of that and into something else. He was going to work for the prisons service, because the prison services have huge amount of landscaping, and they were hiring this guy to manage some of that. But he used to do planning applications for a local building firm, and they know, because he was leaving, they needed someone else to step in and do this. And honestly, that kept me in business for like 2 or 3 years. They kept giving me inquiries, and I would go and I would deal with this, and that kept me going. Eventually, I was giving them work, so it works both ways. That's kind of what you're looking for. And the best way to do that is network. Phone everyone you know, try and get some names, approach people. It's difficult. I mean, you're going to have to get out there, put yourself out there. But emailing and sending anonymous letters, or just cold calling, is less likely to be successful. So what I would suggest you do is start using your network. Find people you know who know other people. I would guarantee, if you're in construction, you're no more than two links away from someone who knows an architect. Someone will know someone who knows an architect, and maybe even someone knows an architect. What's that one? What is that? Is it the Kevin Bacon game? Six. What is it called? Is it six links or six? Yeah, there's this idea that every person on earth is no more than 6 people away from Kevin Bacon, the actor. Anyway, I don't know. I digress. But that's how you do it. You use your human network. Use your social capital. Get out there and find someone who knows someone who can put you in touch with the person you want to talk to. Martin Wright, I came across you on TikTok originally, and then same here again on YouTube. Good to know. TikTok has been working for me. I was talked into it by a builder about 2 years ago, and it's the algorithm on TikTok is quite something. It really does, but put you out there as a creator, but also it serves up a lot of interesting content to watch. So it's really good. Simon Drysdale, lovely. It is, that's the drive, Simon, I was mentioning, from Campbelltown up to Tarbert on the Mulligan Tire. Beautiful. Biker's Crib, Gloucestershire only, have YouTube. Brilliant. Ooh, David Holdsworth, message retracted. What did you write, David? Ooh, I'd like to see that. So we've got 11 folk on just now. We've got 10 minutes to 9. I'm going to call it quits at 9 o'clock, guys. So yeah, that's, if you've got any other questions, let me know what you want to talk about. I should probably mention upcoming topics. So I know I have an email on this where I've been talking to various people about what it is I'm going to do, because as I said at the outset of this, I've got an agency who represent me, and there'll be a public announcement about that probably this week. So the agency's name is Frame. They're based in Glasgow. They approached me a few months ago to do that video I did about Energy Saving Trust and their online calculator. And then afterwards we started talking, and we've decided to partner up so that they can represent me to companies who want me to make content for them, which is great. Because I get a surprisingly large number of these inquiries, many of which are just nonsense and they're not going to go anywhere. So I'd rather have someone else deal with it. But also, I know there are companies out there who make products that I really think are excellent, and I'd like to talk to them about possibly featuring them on the channel. So there's that. So yeah. So David, you come back. Hello from Northumberland. I'm searching for a building plot in the hope of undertaking a self-build. I'm hoping to use state-of-the-art roofing and cladding, perhaps incorporating solar PV. Excellent. Would you consider future content on the latest developments? Absolutely, yes, I would. I would say, I hope I'm not jumping the gun here, if you're searching for a building plot to do a self-build, have you done this before? Have you got construction experience? Because in my experience, the best candidate for a self-build is someone who is in the construction industry, quite often with time on their hands, like a retired or semi-retired joiner, plumber, electrician, not only because they have the skills and knowledge, but they also have the network. They will know people who can do things that they themselves cannot, and can put them in touch with people who can answer the various questions. So when you mean self-build, also the question is, are you personally going to be carrying out the labor, the construction of this, or are you going to be managing a main contractor to do this, or will you be taking the role of the main contractor? There's a couple of different ways of looking at self-build, and believe it or not, it's hard to measure what is and what is not self-build. It might sound like a trivial question up front, but the more you dig into it, you begin to realize it's not as simple as you think. So yeah, let me know what is your experience in construction. You've got very, very specific questions there. State-of-the-art roofing and cladding. Yes, and I have a team builder. Wow. I'm retired and have the money. So yes, good. Yeah, that's yeah, you're the ideal candidate. And I've said to people before, you get people who are like, me, I'm almost 45, and you get someone in like midlife who decides, I'm going to get a bit of money, I'm going to buy a plot, I'm going to build something. And the question I've got is, do you have a job? Do you have a career? Are you running a business? What are you doing? And if they say yes, the next question is that in construction? No. Okay. Are you, is your job paying a mortgage for this house? Yes, right. And you have no skills. So basically, the only labor you're going to be replacing, the only thing you're going to be offering to that construction as a self-builder is you're replacing an unskilled laborer. And unskilled laborers are not particularly expensive. So that's, in terms of doing it for save money, doesn't work if you have a job and that job is paying for a mortgage, which is then paying for this building to happen. It is just more efficient for you to leave it to the professionals. Hire professionals, let them do the work. You go back to the office and you earn the money that pays the mortgage and gets this whole thing funded. That's usually how this works. Self-build goes wrong when people assume that either they can step into this and physically carry out some work themselves, which they're not qualified or experienced to do, or if they are they're doing it for the first time with no experience. They don't know anything about construction, and they start off at this level. So yeah, that's it. Ideal. Brilliant, David. You are in construction. You've got a builder. You're retired. You've got the money. Excellent. So yeah, specifically, what technologies are you wanting me to look at here in terms of, presumably we're talking about a future video. You mentioned state-of-the-art roofing and cladding. Could you be more specific? Are we talking about metal cladding, like zinc or copper, or is it composite stuff or timber? What are we talking about? And in terms of state-of-the-art roofing, because I mean, I don't know. Is roofing? Is there such a thing as state-of-the-art roofing? I've never heard someone use those two terms in the same sentence, like roofing and state-of-the-art. Even single-ply membrane. I remember when that became a big thing 25 years ago. It's fairly bog standard now. So what is state-of-the-art roofing, and what kind of cladding are you thinking of using? And you mentioned incorporating solar PV. Do you mean the PV is built into the cladding? Is that it? Yeah, like sort of the Tesla roof tile thing that I don't know if they're still selling that, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. Is that what we're talking about? Simon Drysdale should do more of these live chats. They're great. Off to watch the F1 shoot. Good night. Thank you for joining us, Simon. I'll be wrapping this up in 5 minutes. And you're right. I should probably do more of these live streams. And I'm going to do one on TikTok in the near future as well. I've done those in the past. I was earlier today trying to find out how to do multiple live streams simultaneously so I could have YouTube and TikTok going at the same time. And there are softwares out there to do it, but I probably just left it too late to install it and actually get the thing up and running. I also, for some reason, I've got my main camera up behind it, but I For whatever reason, it doesn't seem to want to talk to my laptop this evening. It has in the past, it regularly does, but for whatever reason, it won't do it this evening. Probably because I updated the latest Mac OS and whatever software I had that connected them no longer works. So I'm now on the webcam. So that's it. This is slightly less quality than my main camera. So there we go. Right, we are 5 minutes to go. I'll call it a halt at 9 o'clock. This has been fantastic. You guys have always, provided excellent questions for me to get through here. I love doing this, love having this time to chat to people. If there's any other questions, give me a shout. Now, before we go, I was going to talk about upcoming video topics. I've got them here somewhere. Give me a second and I will dig this out. And I've been planning this because, like I said, I've now got an agent. I've now got a new full-time main sponsor in Proctor Group. And we've been hammering out what kind of topics to discuss in videos. I'm also finding that it's much more challenging to produce a video a week than it has been previously. I reckon I'm probably only doing about one a fortnight on average at the moment. I'm trying to get more or better quality content on the channel. So basically, this is what we're coming up with. I'm going to have one about how to remove a load-bearing wall. I'm going to go through the step-by-step practicalities of how you do this and why, if you're in a multiple occupancy building like a block of flats, this can become a problem. And I'm going to ask, can we build classical buildings anymore, or older style buildings? I recently saw, I think it was Lucy Worsley, is that her name? I can't remember. Anyway, historian on BBC, made a documentary about the renovation of Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, and it showed all of these skilled stonemasons and people working with green wood and lead and slate and carving and all the rest of it. And obviously that's a prestige project. The French government will throw no end of money at it. But the point is, the skills do exist, the materials do exist, the knowledge is still there. We could do it, and it'll be a lot safer, with fewer fatalities and injuries than it was when they originally built it. So I'm going to look at that as in terms of, could we do this? Could we actually build old style buildings like cathedrals or Edinburgh, Newtown, that sort of classical architecture? Could we do it? And I think we could, quicker and probably safer than it was built originally. So what are we going to do? Thinking of buying a listed building. I'm going to look at the things you should look for if you're aiming to buy an older historic property. And design ideas for UK homes, particularly new build homes, or if you've got a house and you want to renovate it or substantially change it, things that you should think about factoring into the designs of this, or design ideas that I think developers should make more use of. And that's going to include things like, removing chimneys to make more space. We don't use chimneys anymore. How would you do that in practical terms? What does it cost? How long does it take? Creating utility rooms on the upper floor. If you've got a 3 or 4 story townhouse, the thing to do these days is to build a utility on the upper floor, not on the ground floor, because the upper floor is where the bedrooms are, and that is where the laundry is generated. Converting ground floor rooms to bedrooms for older people. That's now something a lot of people are talking about. So there's that. That's among just some of the things I'm going to be talking about. Major renovation in the English regulations. So both England and Northern Ireland and Wales have different criteria for what insulation you must put in if you are upgrading more than a certain amount of the wall or roof of an existing building. So I think in England and Northern Ireland, it's 25% of a external element, so like a wall. So if you have a wall and it measures whatever, X square meters, and you upgrade more than 25% of it, if you strip 25% off the inside lining of an old wall in a flat or house or tenement, the building regs now take an interest. You have to now upgrade the wall to a certain standard. We don't yet have to do that in Scotland. And the system in Wales does a financial calculation as to whether or not it is worth doing financially. So I'm going to explore that because if you do renovate an older building, you're not, if in England or Northern Ireland, you're not free to just put as much insulation or as little as you want. Pretty quickly you run into the regs saying you have to do a certain amount. So I'll talk through how that operates. And I'm going to keep making videos about redesigning properties that I encountered through my consultations. So that's kind of what we're looking at over the next couple of months in terms of topics. So if you guys have other topics you'd like me to consider, send me something in the comments, get in touch. You can go onto the reallifearchitecture.co.uk website and there's a form on the contact page. Just send me through something as a suggestion. I will put it on the list, but the list is getting long and I am just don't have as much time to get through these videos as I can. So I will try and get around to it, but it could be much later in the year. So there we go, guys. I think we've got 15 folk on. I've really enjoyed this chat. I'm going to bring it to a conclusion. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. It's been a pleasure. And like one of you chaps said, Simon, I'm going to try and do this more often. Good night, folks.